Hello and welcome everybody to our webcast series, Excel VBA. My name's Marcus Small and I own a website called thesmallman.com, a site which has enormous quantities of Visual Basic for applications, dashboards and anything you might want to know about Excel. Alright, let's have a look at what we're going to cover during the series. Well, first up we'll start off with recording useful Excel macros. It's a great way to get started when you begin your journey with VBA. Record the code, then have a look at the code and work out how you can manipulate the code so it can work for you. It's alright if your macros are static, you don't have to change it at all, but understanding what the code means and how it can be changed to your advantage is very useful. We'll have a look at the personal macro workbook. We'll go through and create some practical recorded macros and I'll show you how these can be changed ever so slightly. So we'll do a little bit of manipulation, but we'll mostly be recording macros that will repeat over and over again. And then we'll move on to referring to ranges and sheets and the best way to avoid errors inside of Visual Basic for applications. So I'll show you how you can use the locals window to your advantage. We'll create a dynamic range to trap ranges consistently, and it's one of the most important lessons of all when you're learning Visual Basic for applications. You want to be able to trap a range that moves vertically and horizontally. We'll use things like special cells, we'll use find and replace, and I didn't mention earlier, but all of these videos are about an hour, so they're just enough for you to start your creative juices to really start working and to start getting understanding of the building blocks of the language. So then we'll move on to things like filtering, sorting and consolidating. So we'll sort data, we'll basically record some code, and then we'll create some weapons grade code that will sort data with no fuss at all, and you can compare the pair. So you can have a look at what the recorded code looks like and then have a look at what really succinct coding looks like. That's one of the things about this particular series that I think might be a little different to others. I'm a practitioner. I also have one of the largest VBA websites in the world. I'm only going to be including what I think is absolutely important for you to build your knowledge of this language. So the code is very succinct, it's on point, and it involves the things that I think are extremely important. So using the autofilter, using the sort, copying data, referring to ranges effectively, referring to sheets effectively, trapping dynamic ranges. Once you can do all these things, you've really got the language covered, and then it's about putting effort in so you can improve your VBA skills. And finally, I'll take you through looping and working with change events in VBA. This is something that you do a lot once you learn the language. I'll show you from the building blocks, how do you create a basic loop. Now I would say 95% of my loops are created a single way, and I'll show you how you can reproduce that particular loop over and over again, just keeping it really nice and simple and building up from a fairly simple example to showing you how we'd use it in a practical context. Then we'll loop through things like worksheets, we'll loop through ranges, we'll create some if statements, and then we'll create some change events. Now change events are fantastic in Excel. You can have a macro run on the clicking of a sheet, on the changing of a cell, on the selection of cells, but I will focus on what the things that I really use it for, which would probably be sort of around selecting sheets and changing ranges. So by the time you get to the end of this series, you should really understand how to put your code together, because the basic premise behind all of these courses follows the Excel object hierarchy, which I tell my students all of the time. You just have to work out what elements you're using inside your Visual Basic for applications and then go about coding in that way. And the basic premise is just this. The idea behind the whole language is just to get as much syntax in your head as possible. And the object hierarchy goes workbook dot worksheet dot range dot action, and that dot action can be dot autofilter, dot sort, dot copy, dot find, dot replace, whatever it is. It's just a matter of getting the dot action, the dot autofilter, dot find, etc., getting that syntax for all of the code in your head. And that just comes with practice, people. You just have to practice, and with time, through practice, your knowledge increases. So this will give you the basic building blocks to build that knowledge base so you can write exceptionally succinct and on point VBA code. I'm looking forward to having you along for the journey. Thanks for your time.